pop culture, everything is permitted.
What is that? What is that I hear there? Is that new intro music?
Sounds like a new intro.
It is new intro music.
It is new intro music. We have a brand spanking new intro that is ours and ours alone.
Intro the permitted verse 2. Coming in 2022. I think that's the fastest joke I've ever made.
Oh, God.
You might have just set a record. Yes, we have new intro music. It is another fresh episode of Everything is Permitted. I'm your host, Julian Brown, alongside my co-host, the Man of Steel, Matt Reppert, and the Master of Puns, Brittany Tomes. How we doing, guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a little tired.
I'm also tired.
Staying up too late playing Destiny, are you?
No, well, for one, daylight savings kind of like messed up my sleep a little bit, but also like I was working at my brother's house yesterday. And,
Oh, you were digging like trenches, I think, right?
yes, part of that, but also we were, laying pipes down and stuff like that for
Laying
wires.
pipes, digging trenches, getting ready for the Great War.
Yeah, actually, a funny story is one of my brother's neighbors, and they're getting ready to move, but I thought this was the woman. She's a very nosy, kind of annoying, like one of those standard neighbors. And I thought this was the woman because she stopped by because me and another guy were like digging stuff out front. And she goes, "Oh my God, what are you guys doing?" And I literally said, "Preparing for the Hun, ma'am." And that was where, and like I don't think she heard me, but yeah, that was my moment right there.
I thought you were doing the Death Star trench run. Just like recreating the whole miniature
Almost
set.
there. Almost there. I was actually very appropriate for the Death Star trench run this morning because I am wearing my new Tarjay Star Wars shirt, but I was also wearing my
It's beautiful.
Darth Vader Death Star Wars PJs at home with my Millennium Falcon YT 1300 Carillion, like the blueprint shirt as well. I was
I
very
love the blueprint
I
shirt.
was very Star Warsy today.
wow.
Before we go any further, like we said at the very beginning of the show, we have new intro music, and we have to give a massive shout out to David Russell Gucci, who did that awesome music. He composed that himself. That's his voice on there. We love it. Thank you so much for working with us on that. You'll hear it for the rest of the show. And I did a little something special at the end for our credits and outro as well. So it was fun making that. I was very proud of myself. I had a moment.
A
It
moment.
was a good moment.
I was just proud of myself.
Okay.
That was it more
Claps
than
for
anything.
Julian.
You don't need to clap for me. It's okay.
I always clap for you.
Also, I have to give another shout out. A couple weeks ago, after we recorded one of our episodes, we recorded a little guest spot for the Geeks with Kids podcast, and that just debuted. It's their intro to Horror Film 101. It's episode 123. That is available wherever you listen to podcasts right now. Again, it's Geeks with Kids. I listened to the show. I'm actually jealous that like we couldn't be on the whole thing because I had so many opinions. They were talking about my boy, Freddy Krueger. They talked about our movie, The Thing. Though I do feel a little bit like something got lost in translation because they're like, what's a good intro to horror for people who've never watched horror before?
Oh.
And maybe ones that you could watch with your kids. And they were,
Oh,
no, listen, they were fine with ours.
Oh my God.
They loved it. Everybody gave a thumbs
I mean,
up.
The Thing was one of my favorite movies as a kid. Like one of my favorite horror movies for sure.
Yeah, but is that a movie like, okay, Jimmy, let's sit down. Oh, don't worry about those dogs. They'll be fine. Oh my God, no, they're not fine.
Yo, dude, I was obsessed with like Dreamcatcher when I was a kid, and that's like an alien that comes out of someone's butt. It's like a really bloody scene, and yeah, so
At the same time, like we all had parents who showed us these films at ages we probably shouldn't have seen them. Like I saw The Thing when I was not a teenager yet.
Yeah,
So,
no, definitely.
yeah, whether it's Marvel's The Thing or like the show The Thing, it's all good for kids.
I would not show The Thing to Cecily or I don't know. I don't know what kid Caleb's going to be yet.
It builds character.
Maybe. But anyway, they put out a great show. You could hear us on there if you'd like to download it. Again, it's Geeks with Kids, episode 123, Intro to Horror Film 101. So that's that. Let's get into rants and raves. Now, you said before we started recording that you might forget, or you did forget.
I think I remembered something I was going to talk about, like not really a rant.
Do you
or a
want
rave.
to? Do you want to wait a second and think about it some more? Or do you,
You
want
guys,
Brittany
you guys
to go?
can, yeah, you guys can go if you guys are ready.
Brittany's not ready. I'll start for once. I never start rants.
All
and
right, there
raves.
you go.
I'll do it. I have a little bit of a rant. Like you said, it's not like a huge thing,
Yeah.
but like I have a little bit of a beef, okay, with the release of Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. Halloween is over, right? Like I feel like this is a movie.
Happy Thanksgiving. Here's
Yeah,
Dr.
happy
Sleep.
Thanksgiving. Red rum, red rum. Why did this not get released in October? Go ahead.
I think I know.
Okay.
You know, on Thanksgiving when you eat a bunch of turkey and then you get really sleepy?
Oh,
That's it.
come on now.
Dr. Sleep. Come to the theater.
That must have been like one of your most
worst.
epic fails.
I laughed
to
before I
date.
even finished it. I knew it was bad. But yeah, I agree that it should have been out, or at least maybe released at the same time that it was, even at the end of like the summer.
Yeah, like
leading into the
do
fall.
like a little bit of competition or something. It just did like coming out in I think 2 weeks. It's like okay, and then also I think Frozen comes out in November. Like it's all has to do with like Frozen and winter and snow, and I'm like December. But I also get that one because they probably don't want 2 Disney movies competing with each other with Star Wars and
Yeah, no,
Frozen.
definitely not.
So
They're like, we want to make money every month, not twice in 1 month.
this goes back to your whole thing about the Disney empire and
Oh, an empire. Well, before they bought Star Wars.
before the dark times.
The before time and the long, long ago.
So that's my rant. I kind of wanted to see Doctor Sleep last month, which is only 3 days ago, but that's when like I would want to see it. I watched The Shining on Halloween is one of my traditions if I actually remember to watch it. But in 4K, great restoration by the way. I saw comparisons.
Yeah.
And whew, bueno.
4K is about the distance he was walking around that maze.
Or little what's his name going around it in his little trike too. I was like,
Annie Torrance.
he had a good little lap going. Yeah.
Respect. That's another one I watched at a young age, and I was just like, I don't even ride a tricycle anymore. This is pretty wild.
This is getting away from rants and raves, but something I never noticed in this movie before was the head chef. I always forget his name.
It's like Scatman Crothers, I think, is
The actor.
I love him.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
anyway,
his
like
name.
he's sitting in his bed, right, and he like knows bad shit's going on, and he's watching the news down in Florida, and I never noticed it. But behind his bed and above his TV are 2 paintings of like big naked breasted black women, and I'm like, oh,
The man knows what he
the
likes.
man knows what he
man-
likes.
That's the Kubrick stuff right there.
I was just like, it is very Kubrick, right? Just like random ass, like it was great. I was like, oh, okay, man, bravo. I wonder what your wife thinks of that, who is maybe not there. Anyway, I'm getting off my rants and raves. Movie release times, I don't get it. I get Frozen. I don't get Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
I'll say my rave is hearing about Into the Spider-Verse 2.
Yes.
Finally going to happen, because that just made me really excited. I was like, thank you. And I like that the release isn't soon because it's an animated film and they take forever to make. So it's also like, it's going to be just as good as the first because they're already saying it's like this far in the future. So I'm excited.
What do you mean
about
this
it.
far in the future?
Like when
Oh,
it's
you mean the
gonna come
date,
out.
not like the movie.
itself. We don't know anything about the plot yet,
Nope.
but man, do I like the visual effects of their little graphics being like, dude.
I love that movie.
It's a fantastic movie. Like
I cry every time.
it's actually
Wait, hold on, time out.
Oh God, she does. She always cries.
Where do you cry?
What do you mean? How do you watch Into the Spider-Verse and you don't cry?
I don't cry.
You don't cry when I don't want to ruin this for anybody, but when a character death happens, you don't cry at the end with the little thing to Stan Lee.
No.
Okay, I cry every time Stan Lee's brought up. It's
This
just
is the
weird.
running thing with you, though. Like
I feel things very strongly. Okay, Star Wars also makes me cry.
Star Wars makes me cry. That's fine. But like Into the Spider-Verse?
That movie's really deep.
I
It's
mean,
about
maybe
like superheroes in general and how everybody can be a
maybe
hero.
when Uncle Aaron dies. Like,
That's what
maybe.
I meant. Uncle
Okay.
Aaron makes me tear up, and then like there's so many like deep
that was
parts
that
in
was
the
a
movie.
spoiler in case you haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
I'm
by
sorry, the
way.
movie came out like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, he's so cool.
What, Uncle Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a badass and a bad guy.
And it's Marshall
soundtrack is
Ali,
scary.
for God's
It is.
sakes. I mean,
Marshall Ali's and everything. Blade. Can't wait. Can't wait. Yeah, I'm stoked for the sequel. Absolutely can't wait. I'm glad they announced it. And I'm glad that Sony is moving forward with Spider stuff while the Marvel deal is still on. Rant, rave.
Rant. I remembered what I was going to talk about.
Yes.
So this could probably be a topic all in itself. So I will kind of loosely touch upon it. But Blizzard and the ongoing thing with people that are protesting in Hong Kong and what has happened at BlizzCon.
yeah.
So
What
basically,
exactly happened?
So, all right. So, I think it's Hearthstone is the game that was being streamed. It's one of Blizzard's games. Basically, one of the gamers during a live stream, he put on a gas mask that, like many protesters in Hong Kong are using, during the demonstrations and stuff like that. Blizzard banned him, removed him from.
Jesus.
said he would not get his prize money, he would not get anything, and he was not allowed to compete for like 2 years or permanently. I can't remember the exact punishment that they meted out at first. So there was obviously a huge backlash,
As there should be,
from the gaming community. Like basically, like a lot of people were coming out against Blizzard. And so BlizzCon, their thing, which, you know, they announced Diablo 4, which honestly I don't care about anymore.
I've never played
I used to love the Diablo series, but like I never played 3, and I could give two shits about Diablo 4. And honestly, Blizzard, the company, has fallen off to me. Like after this whole thing, so they basically, like, they're kowtowing to China because there is a lot of money to be made in China. And they haven't explicitly said they're kowtowing to China, but everybody knows that they are because they don't want the Chinese government to say, all right, well, guess what? We're going to ban your games now. So the billions of dollars you make, it's gone. So their CEO, and I can't remember the guy's name.
He's that long-haired, weirdo looking guy.
Yes, he is, right? The long-haired dude. Yeah. And he came out at the start open of BlizzCon, and he basically said, like, oh, you know, and he didn't reference anything specific that has happened. He gave the most generic, like, oh, you know, we're sorry. We believe that video games can bring people together. He basically said that, oh, they screwed up, but didn't give specifics or anything like that. And basically didn't, he said nothing. Like, that's essentially what it boiled down to.
But they did backpedal and give the guy his stuff, right?
Yeah, but I think he got like a year ban or something like that. Like, he's banned for a year. Still, but they said, like, oh, he will get his prize money and everything. Basically, they're still kowtowing to China. And
if I'm a gamer, I'm not playing. What did you said? It's Hearthstone.
It's Hearthstone, but like they also.
And I'm also not playing Overwatch.
Yeah,
like I'm not playing Overwatch to begin with. But it continues to just completely not surprise me, or it does surprise me. These stupid ass decisions that video game companies are making, whether it's the loot box scandal, whether it's a ban on something that needs to be talked about with what's going on in Hong Kong, it's not your place to ban that person.
Like Blizzard, like also like, and something else that happened during when the guy put on the mask and everything, there were two guys that were a part of the stream. They also received bans, even though they were not a part of this protest. They even made a joke. They kind of like ducked out of the way of the camera, like, oh, here, you know, the backlash is coming. They were given bans, although I think those were rescinded just for hosting this guy on a stream. And I mean, like, Blizzard basically, like somebody essentially held up a sign that said, I don't like this, and Blizzard dropped a nuke essentially to fight it. So yeah, so Blizzard can go to hell. And honestly, like, as I said, this could pretty much be its own topic later in another episode. Yeah. We can talk about this, but
I mean, I hate when video game companies or people that play video games are trying to say, like, keep politics out of video games or whatever. Do you realize that video games, just like comic books, are inherently political? They've always been political. Like, they spread certain messages. They're about the world. They critique the world that we're in, or talk about how the world could be different in certain ways. Like, yeah. Have you played any video game? Have you really thought about the people that are behind it and what sort of message they're trying to send you? So it's stupid to ban anything for people trying to bring light to a horrible situation that's happening. Like
Jim Sterling, who's a YouTuber I've referenced on the show before, and he's talked about this at length. He actually, one of the things that he said, he goes, not saying something is saying something.
Yeah.
And he's like, exactly. Just because they're not saying, like, just because you're like, oh, we respect free speech, but only to a point, like, that's still a stance, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. So that was my rant against Blizzard, Activision Blizzard. And
fuck Activision. Like, seriously, like, Activision, fuck yourself. Seriously.
I was actually surprised to learn they were still a thing.
Activision?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and Bungie made the smart ass move and got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah. Dropped Activision was only relevant when, like, Tony Hawk Pro Skater was a thing.
But that's the problem. They're still relevant because they give smaller developers money to release their games, but then they become, you know, for lack of a better term, slaves to their scheduling and promotion and fire this person, hire this person, put this in the game, don't put this in the game. They're video game overlords, and they're a horrible company, and they can go fuck themselves.
You think you're a hero, but you're there long enough to become the villain.
Exactly.
That's 90% of the video game industry.
Before we get to the permitted minute, we have a great show for you today. We are going to be talking about, this is actually a kind of a second part to a previous episode, the Streaming Wars. This is the Streaming Wars part 2, because there's been a lot about new streaming companies in the news the past couple of weeks, and it doesn't seem to end. And there's been I believe we can call it the first casualty of the streaming war. So we're going to get to all that, and we're also going to be talking about, also in the news, the futures of two major franchises in Game of Thrones and Star Wars. So we have that to look forward to. But before we get to that, it is time for
The permitted minute.
the permitted minute, and we are going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mr. Jada, start the clock.
Light the bat signal. Jeffrey Wright has officially signed on to Matt Reeves' The Batman, playing the iconic Commissioner Gordon. 2 bits of Game of Thrones news. HBO has pulled the plug on the Naomi Watts-led prequel series despite having already begun filming. However, House of the Dragon, a Targaryen prequel series set 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones, has received a 10-episode order from HBO.
On the subject of getting the can, the Benioff and Weiss-led Star Wars trilogy has been canceled. Thank the old gods and the new. And the Force. Don't forget the Force.
The adventures of Lois and Clark will take to the skies again. The CW is going ahead with a Superman and Lois series starring Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch. In the MCU, Kevin Feige will continue to make 3 to 4 films in the universe a year, according to Disney co-chairman and CCO Alan Horn.
The reviews are in for Death Stranding, and they're split. Some calling it as weird and as awesome as you expected, while others are calling it okay, with a tough or meh gameplay.
Finally, getting to the subject matter of today's episode, in an odd move, Doom Patrol Season 2 will premiere on both HBO Max and DC Universe. Oh!
How'd we do?
Blew it out of the water.
1 minute.
Exactly.
1 minute exactly. 1 minute exactly. The permitted minute was a permitted minute. It was slicked by. I almost hit that Ricardo Montalban. Time is a luxury you do not have, Admiral. But today we did. We did.
Man.
I love Ricardo Montalban's voice. I wish he was still around.
The man, I know we've talked about him before, but the man's voice was like pure smoothness. It was
Slick.
Yeah.
I would let him like read me lullabies to sleep.
I was really worried about how you're going to end that sentence.
And Julian, let me tell you about this story.
Let me tell you about
Once upon a time.
Captain James Tiberius Kirk. Let's get right into the streaming wars, part 2. We did a big episode on this. I believe it was episode 23.
I can't remember. I was listening to some of our older episodes like a few days ago, and I think the Streaming Wars was one of them, but I can't remember which.
It is. It is the Streaming Wars part 2. Brittany wasn't here for part 1, but we are glad to have you now for the second part, and I'm sure there will be a part 3 and a part 4 as the streaming war continues and new services come and old services go. So let's get right into it. We've had some new players enter the Streaming Wars game, or that are going to be imminently released, such as Disney Plus, which is next week. Woo, 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 woo. Well, actually not. Yeah, next week. And then also, Matt, you've been very grumpy about this, as have I, because of the details surrounding it. HBO Max, which I don't understand.
I don't get
Doesn't
that
make any
either.
sense.
Yeah,
HBO was already a separate.
Exactly.
Separate
Like
paid
what
service.
are they doing? And then a surprise contender that just came out very recently in AMC On Demand, not AMC the American Movie Channel, but AMC the movie chain,
yeah.
the theater chain, with an on demand service, which is cool in theory. I actually want to start with that. Because they have some movies that I think are either still in theaters or very fresh, like out of their theater run, and you can rent them or purchase them. And then what's cool about that is if you do it through AMC On Demand, you get points towards like your movie buying purchases for AMC and towards like concessions when you go to the actual movie theater. So they're promoting both watching at home, but also saying, hey, here's some perks. Come, because they're doing this because people are not going to the movies as much. Theaters
can't afford it.
Yeah, theater sales have been down. So they're saying, hey, here's some movies, watch them, and then get some free movie tickets.
Yeah.
Let's start with AMC On Demand. What do we think about this?
I think it could be cool. It's like probably the first time any sort of theater chain has tried to attempt something like this. So we'll see if it works or not, but it might help make movies more accessible to people that can't afford to go to the movies now. Especially with it's insane in the last few years just how high like movie tickets have gone up if you're not seeing it on Saturday mornings like we do. For Julian to get them points.
I gotta get those matinee points.
That's
baby.
just based on our availability, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're not that old yet.
Honestly, to me, this is just another player, and AMC to me is going to be the ones that's not going to last long. Like I have a feeling that it's going to cost them a lot of money They're going to hang in there for a while, but eventually they're going to pull back. They're going to be like, all right, we're not doing our streaming service anymore.
I mean, they can only afford to have one concession stand open ever. So
I think they finally just like killed the one in the back.
They can see it,
yeah,
because there's like stuff
they just
blocking
put
it.
displays for you to take
which
pictures
is really
of.
too bad.
Yeah.
But and 9 times out of 10, especially like at our theater specifically, the people that are working those concession stands are like super rude. And I'm guessing that's probably because they make shit money. But at the same time, like, be nice.
Probably tired of being the only concession.
Well,
stand
yeah,
open.
that too, because there's usually only 1 or 2 people.
I would hate to work an 8-hour shift when like literally you're the only line.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, like, it's not to excuse them, but I know that they get treated like shit by the general populace.
I've never heard of anyone who's worked at a movie theater and said that they've enjoyed the job unless they've been in a manager position.
No, honestly, this is something is that I know that like pretty much everybody should work a public service job, like a cashier at a supermarket, work in a movie theater. It'll give you so much more respect for people that work in those jobs. You'll be so much better towards
100%.
them. You know, you won't treat them like garbage if they can't get your Skittles or something like that.
Yeah. Or they're like, ma'am, this coupon's not valid anymore. I'm like, say no more. I won't even use it.
Exactly.
I'm throwing it out.
Yeah, I've lost. I remember I worked at a store, and I remember there was a guy who was trying to do a coupon on condoms, and he literally was like, "No, the condoms." Like, "No, sir, it's not for these." And he's like, and I remember he argued with me. I'm like, "Let's go to the aisle and look at that, sir." And we literally go back, and he goes, "Oh, I guess I'll I'll drop it so you won't like hold up your line anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, dude."
To quote It's Always
You
Sunny,
could've-
I gotta pay $10 for these condoms for my Magnum dog. And you're like, no, sir, here's your, Life brand condoms for like $5.
Oh my god. Getting back to the subject matter at hand and not condoms. Jesus Christ. Matt, I'm with you. I think that it's not going to last. I like the idea and concept. Am I going to spend the extra money on top of my AMC A list to sign up for it? No, I'm not. I already signed up to a bunch of, and I'm about to spend money on Disney Plus as well. Like I'm getting my points by buying movie tickets for you guys. It works out well.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
I took us to see I think it was Zombieland for free.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Didn't have to pay a dime. It was wonderful.
All I had to do was scrounge up the bucks to afford those movie nachos.
Hey, don't look poorly though on those mozzarella sticks, because those are delicious as well.
Nazi sticks.
Let's move on from AMC On Demand to the one I think that we're all like, oh, Matt just like snickered. I saw it. I liked it. To HBO Max, which as I was writing this, I had the HBO Max website on my computer and their facts on there to be like, who gets HBO Max? Why is HBO Max? Why?
Like what I'm legit curious. What does it offer you?
They can barely have enough things just for HBO right now.
Exactly.
Like especially Game of Thrones. How much money do they lose on that?
So the deal with HBO Max is that they are also tied in with Warner Media. So on top of HBO, they are also getting the whole, I believe, the Warner Media archive, which is what we talked about in the Permanent Minute. Doom Patrol is going to be on both HBO Max and DC Universe, as well as the newly being produced Green Lantern series. But like, why?
Watchmen going to do the same thing?
I don't know. Here's the
That would make more.
So here's where it gets all muddy and confusing and stupid. So on the fact sheet, because I was looking, because I'm an HBO subscriber, am I going to get HBO Max for free? Well, specifically for HBO subscribers, they said we do not have any details for HBO subscribers at this time. Check back closer to launch. But big but here. If you are an HBO Now subscriber, HBO Now is if you don't have cable, but you want HBO, you pay like $15 a month, they automatically get HBO Max. So, I mean, I would hope that I get HBO Max, right? If I'm an HBO subscriber. So here's another one, which we didn't put on this list, and I should have. Apple TV just launched, and I was very surprised and happy to know, because I just bought a new iPad, that because I got a new iPad, I get a free year of Apple TV, and Apple TV going forward is then only $4.99 a month. But HBO Max just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think they have price points yet, but like, you gotta imagine it's not going to be cheap.
Also, why would they even add to it? Why wouldn't they just make their normal HBO better? Like, that doesn't make sense to me that they're adding another level on top of that.
Why have HBO Now and HBO Max?
Yeah.
Because everybody has a streaming service and they have to get in on it.
But they have a streaming service.
HBO Now.
But like, it's like, oh, we have to have the new streaming service and the new sexiness.
You could just phase out Now and change it to Max.
So we talked about AMC probably not going to survive this.
No.
Does HBO Max survive this?
No.
I don't think so. They don't have enough content.
But the thing is that they have content. They have
Yeah.
HBO.
But the thing is that like they're making like, you know, new Game of Thrones stuff, and like that shit ain't cheap. Like I've said that about the previous episode. I'm like, new content is not cheap. Like, especially to make these big fantasy epics, especially the Targaryens with freaking dragons flying around everywhere. Like, that's going to cost them millions upon millions. Like, if that thing is not a slam dunk home run that like gets people like running to the HBO service, whatever it's on, they're going to be in the hole a lot of money, like a lot of freaking money.
And Brittany, you've been watching Watchmen. I'm assuming that Watchmen has a great production value as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think Watchmen must have been expensive to make because it's really well done. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know how many more people have subscribed to it just because of Watchmen. Like I did because I'm already a fan of Watchmen, and I like this, you know, story they're going to. But other people I've talked to, like, they're not gonna go out of their way to watch it if they aren't already interested in the subject.
That's where I'm interested in Watchmen, but I'm not going to get HBO to watch it.
I have HBO and I'm not watching Watchmen, so that says something.
Think about like you can go
Maybe not.
There was a joke to be made there with who's watching the Watchmen. Currently, the same people that watched the last one.
But like, I mean, like, I don't see like shows like Watchmen or anything like that. Like they don't move the needle like Game of Thrones did. Like there's
I think it's getting good numbers, to be fair.
I mean, yeah, but it's not going to be the cultural force that
it's
Game
not.
of Thrones was, because I mean, there are YouTube videos of like that I've seen where like an entire bar full of people are watching, you know, the famous Hold the Door scene and everything
Right.
like that, and they show the reactions of people to various parts of the series. Like, Watchmen isn't going to do that. Like, Watchmen is not going to have that same effect.
I did make a mistake and say that HBO Max doesn't have price pointing yet.
Yeah, I thought it did.
Because it is going to be a whopping $15 a month, which is already the price of HBO Now.
Yeah, and that's like Netflix level.
Yeah, it is Netflix.
So Netflix, and I believe this is the highest tier if you do 4K, which I do, is $15.99 a month. But they also have a great, you know, library of movies and original programming. Whereas HBO has that, but you already like this is where I keep going back to and getting annoyed and confused by HBO Max. You have HBO and HBO Now, or HBO Go if you're already like. There's too many.
I mean, like maybe like could they be replacing like HBO Now with Max or something?
Okay, listen. If they all of a sudden say, okay, HBO Now subscribers, you no longer have HBO Now, you're automatically being brought on to HBO Max, and that changes things. That makes a bit of a difference to me.
Yeah.
And if as an HBO subscriber, then I automatically get HBO Max, again, that changes things for me. And I'm a little bit more not shitting on this service. But it's so just completely
It's too vague right now.
vague. And the fact that like it just seemed to be coming out of nowhere and unnecessary that I'm annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Let's get into that some more about the prices and pricing and tiers for these streaming services, because with each streaming service that comes out, the price continues to go up, and exclusivity, which we've talked about a bunch,
we've talked about
continues to grow as well. And then those prices start to creep up on or even surpass the price of cable. So we have our tier one here, and I found this graphic from Geeks with Kids. So thank you, Geeks with Kids. Tier one is Netflix, $15.99, Hulu, $11.99, and I think that's the commercial free price point.
That's commercial free.
Prime Video, $12.99, but I think like I pay. I think
I
you
do
could-
the yearly one.
yeah,
so it ends up being cheaper.
for Prime, so I think it's cheaper. And then Disney Plus, which is honestly unbeatable at this point for their price point, $6.99. Apple TV, $4.99, I believe, unless you have recently bought a product of theirs, then you get a year free. HBO Max, which we just talked about, $14.99 a month, and then the upcoming NBC streaming service, Peacock, which who knows what that's going to involve. And then we have tier two, which I subscribe to and then unsubscribe from whenever Star Trek isn't on, which is CBS All Access at $9.99, which should be on tier one because the programming to price point is a ripoff. Then you have Showtime, which I guess they have their own as well. $10.99, Stars at $8.99. And then finally, tier three, you have the Criterion channel, which I'm guessing is all of the classic Criterion collection
yeah.
for $10.99, which seems expensive.
But Criterion is expensive.
Shudder, have any of you guys heard of Shudder?
No.
No, that's at $5.99, and then Mubi, movie.
Is that like voodoo?
I'm not the one who's so sorry. Godsmack. $9.99 a month. So to add all of these up, if we're at tier 1, we are at $67.94 a month. Tier 1 plus 2, $97.91 a month. Tiers 1, 2, and 3, if you have all of these, you are at $124.88. For comparison, right?
Not even counting BBC shows with BritBox.
There,
That's like $6.99 a month. I know because I just got it from my mom.
I got to get
Christmas.
BritBox. And then as a comparison, right now, for my cable and internet combo pack, whatever they call it, the Comcast Xfinity double play, I am paying $175 a month. That's for like really high speed internet. And then we have every single movie channel, but I think Xfinity is dropping stars, so that price may go down.
Yeah. It won't, trust me, but go.
On top of that, I have Prime and Netflix, and then I am going to be signing up on day of release.
Yeah,
the Disney
I'll get Disney Plus.
Disney
as
Plus
well.
bundle for $12.99 with Hulu and ESPN Plus bundled in there. So I'm closing in at $200 for television and internet at this point. Who wins here? Does the streaming services win and you just sign up a la carte, or does cable win because you get all of this in a bundle?
I mean, I know we've talked about this at length before, but this isn't sustainable. Some of the companies are going to drop out. They're going to bow out because of the cost of making your old library of stuff is not enough to keep people coming to your streaming service. Like, as much as people love The Office and Parks and Rec and everything, that's not going to keep them like getting NBC streaming service, which starts next year, I think, or whatever. You have to produce like talked about quality content, and that, as I said earlier, that costs a lot of money. And companies some of them are going to bankrupt themselves doing this. And I know we're going to talk about like potential future casualties as well as the
And when you
one.
do have those quality shows, or the ones that are talked about, you can't cancel them. Like Netflix keeps trying to do to promote new content, they'll cancel shows that are being watched by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you get the backlash. So it's like, if you already have something that's working well and it's actually making you money and you're not losing it, just keep it.
Well,
for
and
however many seasons it needs to be, and then use the extra money to make your new programs.
you just brought up a great point about losing money, and Matt, you've talked about this.
Yes.
Netflix is in the can, like a lot of money.
Yeah, because they canceled a lot of their really high-ranking shows for things, and it was just like, what are you doing?
I believe have some issues with banks right now, because I think banks are stopping, like, not giving them more money because they are in debt.
Like Netflix's problem is, and I know that they had talked about like, we're not going to just release the entire season of something at once. We'll release it over a few weeks. And there was this huge backlash because, people are like, I want to binge watch an entire season over the weekend and everything, not realizing that that's what's going to kill Netflix. Because if you can just binge watch something over the weekend, what else? Like, let's just say I wanted to cancel it and
Can I just interrupt you real quick?
Go ahead.
Did you mean that binge watching is going to kill it, or watching it episode by episode weekly?
Binge
is
watching
gonna
will kill
okay.
it, because the thing is that like they put out an entire season in one go, then you can just watch that entire season. And let's just say you cancel your Netflix just because you watch that entire thing in one weekend. If they do it weekly, they drip you, like you keep coming back to watch every episode every week. So therefore they kind of hook you to pay longer.
Yeah, because then you get people who are demanding more and more content because they're finishing it at a faster rate. And then they're like, oh, now I got to wait. I mean, what just came out recently? Like Big Mouth season 3, and then Atypical just dropped or whatever. And some people have finished it in like a day, and then they're like, oh, I have to wait another year. And Big Mouth is an animated show. So regardless of if you like it or not, like that takes time. Look at how Rick and Morty's taking a long time to come back. But that's because they genuinely are like, this costs money. We want to make sure the story's good and you guys will enjoy it. So like, give us time. But like Netflix can't afford to do that because they keep doing these bingeable shows.
Yeah, and they're stuck at this point because just them considering like, hey, maybe we won't do it for all the shows. Maybe like some of them will do it weekly. People freaked the hell out.
Well, and this is a great checkbox in the win column for cable, and something that Netflix seemed to learn, because people bitched and moaned about it, but they took the Great British Baking Show, which is wildly popular. You were able to binge all the seasons before. This past season, Karen bitched about it. She has to watch it episode by episode, which what does that do? That keeps you coming back to the service.
Exactly.
And this morning I put on an episode of The Flash. This is a good point, on my DVR, keeping me on cable. She's like, oh, And I was like, what? Great British Baking Show. So she was anticipating coming back to the service to watch the episode that just dropped.
Yeah.
So that is how they maybe stay alive, but that is also how cable will stay alive because people DVR shows.
Yep, they want the live shows as they're happening.
Exactly. So we did talk about it on the Streaming Wars Part 1. I think we all, well, Matt and I, Brittany, you weren't here. We agreed that cable would see it out and win. Are we sticking with that, or do we think streaming maybe has a chance to put up more of a fight?
I feel like we're going to have a weird mix for a long time. I mean, I think ultimately cable won't really ever end. It would have to be like a complete change in the way we make TV shows and films that are made for TV for cable to just completely disappear. But there's going to be a weird sort of hodgepodge of like cable networks that also own these streaming services or vice versa.
And we're already starting to see that.
Yeah, so I see it more of being sort of a mashup that way, but at the same time, just having these separate streaming services and then the money being jacked up constantly, or people paying for all these separate services just to have a certain amount of content, it's not sustainable. So, I mean, they're going to have to learn eventually at what rate we have to stop at, because people also only get paid so much. We see that everywhere else. Like, I can't afford every single streaming service.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, people normally have to keep like sort of tabs and be like, can I afford Netflix or can I afford Hulu? Some people drop services just depending on what shows are out and switch between the two.
And that actually that brings us to a great segue here, because we're talking about sustainability and being able to survive this. We did our first Streaming Wars episode on June 11th, and since then, it did claim its first victim in PlayStation Vue, which it was obviously on if you had a PlayStation, and I think even if you didn't have a PlayStation, there's a TV app. It was a cable alternative. You get, you can pay for the premium channels, and you get, I think, like 24 or so cable networks. At 800,000 subscribers, that wasn't sustainable, and PlayStation Vue, I believe, is shutting down next week or the week after.
Yeah.
I had a PlayStation. I still didn't know what the heck that was, so
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I'm good.
As a comparison, like I said, they had 800,000 subscribers compared to YouTube TV, which I believe had somewhere around 2 million, whereas Hulu, I think, has 1 million.
There are YouTube channels that have more than 800,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't mean like an actual YouTube channel. I'm talking about YouTube.
I know.
No,
I'm
I know.
just saying, like,
that's a good point. So I wrote that here. The likes of Hulu and YouTube have 2 million and 1 million respectively.
Watch my makeup tutorial featuring my dog.
Cecily loves that shit. All those makeup videos or like random like baking like with
Cecily is the 800,000 like views.
just
her.
100%.
That is true though. Like, YouTube shows are really good for like parents do that with their kids, and they'll be like, my child watches this video of dump trucks just going up the street. He is the reason for like 100 views. And you're like, how are they making all this money on YouTube? Meanwhile, you try to do like quality content and you're like,
we just named PlayStation Vue as the first casualty of the streaming wars. Could we predict maybe what's next? It doesn't look like YouTube TV or Hulu's going anywhere, but we also have Sling and Roku in there, which I believe each have their own cable alternative.
I think it'll probably, because there was a news article that I don't know if I shared in the chat, but it definitely brought up a very interesting point. They said this last quarter is Netflix's last pre-Disney Plus quarter. They said, like, once Disney Plus launches, like, people are going to be very closely watching Netflix's shares, its stock, its viewership, and all, because Netflix is very tight-lipped about how many subscribers they have, how many people watch their stuff, and all that. So, like, I could see Netflix fade fast if Disney Plus takes off and people start jumping from Netflix.
especially if they take the content that is Disney that's on there.
Which
Because
they're
there's still
doing.
Star
Which
Wars
they're
films.
doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Star Wars
They're not
and
going to
Disney
be on there.
films.
We kind of already talked about this, but about, who's going to win this war. But, cable's got to be sitting back and watching all these, other streaming companies try and compete with each other. Are they just sitting back watching them all do this and not feeling threatened? Or do you think cable feels threatened at all?
No, I don't think cable's threatened at all, because Comcast, which we've discussed about, like, and I'm going to preface this and say, like, I don't like the cable companies, because almost all of them are scum.
Yeah.
Like, they're complete assholes. But Comcast, the business, is a juggernaut. Like, it makes literally a multi-billion-dollar company, and I promise you that it could buy quite a few of these streaming services if they wanted to toss around the money.
And then unfortunately you're starting to talk about monopolies though.
Yeah, and
Which
that
doesn't seem to hurt
Looking at
Disney
you,
at all.
Disney.
and that's the unfortunate, and I've talked
What's a monopoly?
and that's where unfortunately I don't know how long it'll take, but that's where I think the streaming wars eventually ends up, is because as companies either declare bankruptcy due to the attempting to stream stuff, or they back out, they're either going to negotiate deals or be purchased by larger companies with money to basically further monopolize content. And like the days of in the rich and heady days of the early 2010s when Netflix, you could just watch almost anything you wanted on Netflix, that's gone. It's probably not coming back anytime soon. Like you're going to have to do this like jumping between services thing, and I know some people, our age have talked about this, is perhaps digital piracy makes its comeback, where people just start pirating.
I don't think it ever went away.
Yeah, it never went away.
To be fair.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about like the almost epidemic levels it was in the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Lawless wasteland.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also what will be once Disney takes over.
Napster and LimeWire make their big triumphant comeback.
But for example, and my brother uses some service, I don't know what it was even called, where literally it's not a centralized thing, but he can download TV shows like that and like entire seasons, and like people have like essentially the service takes say it'll take like 5 bytes from this user, 10 bytes from this
torrenting
user. Essentially, yeah. But it's like it's even more encrypted, so it can't be tracked.
Well, encrypted, and then I think 9 out of 10 people these days have a VPN, so there's literally no repercussions for it.
Yeah, and as I said, like the more that as this stuff gets more expensive and the content, because I'll be honest with you, I'm rolling my eyes at NBC having a streaming service,
of course,
for Netflix.
But of course they would. Of course they would.
Of course they would. So,
something that cable does really well, which is why people still subscribe to cable and they're still winning this thing, is bundles. Bundle this, and that. Bundle this, and this. Is what Disney Plus doing? And Brittany, I'll start with you here. The option, because they're come launch day, you'll have Disney, Hulu Plus, and ESPN Plus, or not Hulu Plus, because it's the commercial Hulu. I'm sure you can upgrade. Is this the answer?
I think it was a really smart thing for Disney to do, but they also know what they're doing and know what they've been doing for the last century. So, that is smart for to kick off a streaming service, but also to kick one off already including other streaming services. So people that may have already have Hulu right now, and they have some Disney or Marvel shows that were prevalent on Hulu, are like, oh, cool, I'm not losing that. If I subscribe to Disney Plus, I just get all that content anyway. So they're pulling in the people that are already into ESPN or Hulu. So, that's just...
Well, that's the thing.
It's smart.
I'm paying, I think, $4.99 right now for ESPN Plus. I'm going to cancel that, and I get this bundled for $12.99. It's a steal.
Yeah, you're basically getting each of those 3 things for $4.99, which is cheaper than Hulu would have been anyway.
So let me run something by you. Out of all the services that we've talked about today on the show, if you were a consumer, which you are, we're all consumers of these products here, what is a bundle that would say, oh, I would get that bundle if it's at that $12.99 all the way up to maybe like a $14.99 price point? I know I put you on the spot here.
It's just I'm so poor. But I'm not interested in getting the Disney service, but we all know how I feel about Disney. It's just every single year I just get more and more mad at them, and it's just ridiculous. But if I were to start streaming services right now and say I hadn't before, I probably would be interested in getting the Disney Plus, and then Netflix as the other equal juggernaut.
Right. And
it would only be very specific shows that I would pick anything else. So right now I have Amazon Prime because I already have it. Obviously people use it for Prime. If you're a college student who's ever needed textbooks, you basically have to get Prime because your teacher tells you oh, you need this book by Monday, and you're like, shit. Okay. So yeah, I have Amazon Prime and I have for years, so I get the Prime Video, and then I have Netflix, and that's it. I did have Hulu for a little bit, but through my brother.
Right.
So that's always an option. Get one person in your family to buy Disney Plus and just everybody watch it.
There, at some point, all the companies are going to crack down.
Oh, they are.
Because I know Netflix has been talking about it, and they're looking into how to prevent that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, try proving my multiple devices aren't all me, bitch.
well, there's one in a zip code that's not where your billing address is at.
Matt, we'll end with you here. Are there any, out of all the services that we've talked about today, any bundles theoretically that would say, hey, like I'd get this service because it's bundling all of these?
I already, like, the thing is, I have Netflix, and Heather and I have Hulu through her Spotify Premium account, so
that's a bundle right there.
Yeah, I mean, but that's because Heather is into Spotify.
Right.
I'm not, so I'm just like, whatever, hey, it's great that we have Hulu, so we can watch The Handmaid's Tale, and that's pretty much the only thing we've really watched on Hulu at this point. I like Brittany, I have Amazon Prime, so I have Amazon Video, and I'm really excited about Man in the High Castle.
Can't wait. 2 weeks.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
Not even 2 weeks. I don't think.
But honestly, like I will get Disney Plus just because like I do want to watch The Mandalorian. So congratulations, Disney. That's how you got me. But I'm not getting their bundle just because I don't care about ESPN. I really don't.
You get a lot of good soccer. Heather's here with us, and she wants
Heather's
to say
like,
something.
you better get that fucking.
Heather, what do you want to say?
No, I want ESPN Plus.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't.
See?
Yeah, but the thing is that like I don't have enough time in my week to watch. Like, and honestly, I don't care about most other soccer leagues. Like, I support Major League Soccer, my home league. I support MLS wherever I can, but I don't care about the Premier League. I understand
Arsenal
it's better.
versus Liverpool.
Yeah, I know. I don't care. I don't care about.
I'm missing Everton versus Tottenham, or I missed Everton versus Tottenham to record this podcast.
I'm missing the Eagles game to record this.
You miss the Eagles game every week, though, and when I say something, you don't seem to care too much.
I'm just it is what it is, but ultimately,
Brittany's wearing an Eagles shirt, so I don't know how
Yeah,
she
I know.
knows either.
Well, because my house is very superstitious, so.
So is it a good thing you're here?
No, like literally, like you could do something out of our tradition, and then
Brittany,
if the Eagles lose, it's your fault.
Brittany, get out of the house. It's like
Yeah.
Eagles don't win when you're home.
Yeah, like my cousin one time wore an Eagle shirt backwards, and then for that season, my dad's like, "You better always wear that shirt backwards."
damn.
So that's my house.
But no, there is like I'll get Disney Plus probably just by itself, just to see if I like what they have to offer, and we'll go from there.
Well, speaking of Disney Plus, before we get to our next segment here, it does seem we did a poll on Facebook about whether you guys wanted a special or us to just do the pilot review of Mandalorian on our episode. It looks like we're going to end up doing a special for that, so that'll be coming out in the next couple days. I guess we're having the watch party at my house, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, guys, catch these reviews. Unlike Aguilar,
Pizza and blue milk. I'm not giving you any satisfaction.
that's fine.
None.
The Philly people know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
We was catching them. Unlike Aguilar.
That does it for the Streaming Wars Part 2. We will definitely be doing a Part 3 in a few months. I'm guessing there'll be a few more casualties before the end of this thing. Let's get into the other big news of this week. Kind of some bombshells and revelations about both Star Wars and Game of Thrones. First, the news that Game of Thrones show writers and runners, and I'm going to butcher their names. Brittany, you did it before. D.B. Weiss or Weiss?
I think
Weiss.
Weiss.
Because it
Weiss
comes from Weiss, which is German.
And it's Benioff?
Benioff.
Benioff.
Yeah.
They left, quote unquote, their planned Star Wars trilogy. Now this is a big deal. And I want to know what you guys believe here. There's rumors going around that they didn't exactly leave. Kathleen Kennedy, Emperor of all Star Wars, was none too pleased, and in my opinion, rightfully so, that they had also taken a deal pretty much simultaneously as their Star Wars deal, and were going to be working on both projects at the same time.
Yeah, I don't blame her. She was like, we couldn't even trust you when you had one show that you had to worry about.
Exactly.
So you're going to try and split your attention over two shows? Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, definitely. And honestly, and I still have yet to watch that season, although I haven't watched the show, period. But given how Game of Thrones ended, I honestly, if I were running anything, I would be like, I don't know if I want these guys helming this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I want them in charge of this.
It's so sad because Game of Thrones is one of those shows where even going back a few years, if you would have thought about how the show's ending, you're like, this is going to be a show that when it ends, people are going to talk about it for years and years to come.
Well, they are.
Well,
just not
they're
in a good
going.
way.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, it hardly comes up in conversation now. When it does, it's kind of like people are like, "Oh yeah, that ended."
Yeah,
it's
not a
you're
happy
At least
thought.
we have Game of Thrones again. Oh no, they fucked it up.
Weren't you the one that said you keep forgetting it even
I
ended
literally
this
keep
year?
forgetting.
I
Yeah.
kind of did the same thing. I was like, oh shit, that ended
Sometimes
this
I go
year.
to talk about it, and then I'm just like, no, wait, no, they ended it. Yeah, and I hated it.
Thanks, I hate it.
I liked the first episode, and then it was a train wreck and a half.
When it comes down to it, Kathleen Kennedy has made really smart decisions about this franchise. Say what you will about Rian Johnson and Last Jedi. I love Last Jedi. It seems that the people that bitched about Last Jedi weren't really like the people buying movie tickets because Rise of Skywalker broke Fandango's record. So people are still into Star Wars and buying the tickets. She has made good decisions regarding this franchise, whether
She's the only person I trust with Star Wars related content anymore, really.
well, yeah, trust. And also, Jurassic World 2 happened and then she fired Colin Trevorrow. Thank God. Because I thought Jurassic World 2 sucked. And apparently he made some indie film that bombed and was awful. And Kathleen Kennedy was like, we wish you the best in your future endeavors. So that was gone. Brought back JJ, which I thought was a brilliant move. But listen, what these guys did with the final season of Game of Thrones, like you guys have been saying, it's a blessing in disguise that they're gone.
Did you see like one of the best Halloween costumes? I don't know if I shared it to you guys, but it's just
trash bag.
A lady literally wearing a trash bag and just says Game of Thrones season 8, and she's holding a Starbucks cup because it was literally a dumpster fire.
It was. What does intrigue me though was that their trilogy was supposedly going to revolve around the origins of the Jedi, which in theory I would love to see. I think that would be a really cool, trilogy of movies. Mm-hmm. From them.
No,
let's not do it. The other big bombshell is that the Game of Thrones White Walker prequel series, which had already begun filming, starring Naomi Watts, done.
Yeah, so there's more money they lost because they started filming
Yeah,
it.
HBO losing money. Now, apparently, this happened in the past with the Game of Thrones pilot. Apparently, the original pilot was god-awful, and the show almost didn't happen, and they literally refilmed 90% of the pilot. And then, the rest is history except the shitty final season. Mm-hmm. I guess HBO decided to cut their losses here and not move forward.
Yeah.
Is that smart?
I think it was because people that really liked Game of Thrones, especially after last season ended, those would have been like the hardcore fans that would have watched a show like this that takes place so far in the past and deals with the lore, because people were really excited about the lore being explored in separate shows. Same thing with like how some people are interested in the Lord of the Rings being handled the same way. But especially after the way it ended, even some really hardcore fans were just like, I'm kind of done. Like, I don't want to see another show. I don't think they're going to do it justice. And doing it a little closer, and the fact that it's Targaryen specific, I think will keep whoever's still interested or might have hope in it to watch.
Yeah, I couldn't, a White Walker prequel, I legit would be like, what is this going to be about? But actually, I'm actually semi-interested in the Targaryen series.
Same.
Because I'm a huge lover of the Game of Thrones lore. I've read all the stuff about the Dance of Dragons,
Azor Ahai.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of good stuff in there, and actually doing a Targaryen show, you could focus on the human drama between the characters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and maybe it'll fix the show a little bit, not a lot.
Well, that's the thing. You have to imagine that the pilot that they filmed for this was so bad that they said, if we do this and we release this and it bombs, people aren't going to watch anything Game of Thrones ever again.
Probably won't even buy the books again. Even
yeah,
though
exactly.
That's really sad.
Yeah, after the betrayal of the final season, which
we were betrayed worse than Jon Snow,
and that dude got killed.
And he was betrayed a little worse than Caesar. So
just a little,
only
worse.
A little. Worse.
Caesar didn't get brought back to life.
Yeah. But to be fair, only half the people that were going to go through with assassinating Caesar did stab him.
Because even when 60 people agree to murder someone, only 23 people will actually stab him.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Jon Snow, they were just like, no, we are the 5 people that really want to stab you, and you getting stabbed.
But you guys brought up a good point, again, that this Targaryen series is coming out. It only takes place 300 years before the events of the Game of Thrones seasons, when the Targaryens were the ruling force in Westeros, and it wasn't the time of the Mad King yet. Like you said, Matt, this is going to be a cool show. There's going to be human interaction. It's not, I think what got people into Game of Thrones was that, yeah, it was fantasy, but it was still driven in some reality, whereas I think you're going to lose some of that with a White Walker series.
Yeah, it's the thing is that even though the lore of Game of Thrones is pretty set, you could have a lot of fun with it, of all right, we know the destination, but we can have fun with the journey to get there.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's so much good stuff with some of the characters and things like that, from the pre-Mad King Westeros and the Targaryens and the civil wars they had and all that stuff. There's so much good stuff.
If you give the people the lore, You will flourish.
Speaking of lore, getting very off subject for 1 second, the whole morning I spent reading the first anthology Destiny lore book about Oryx and Savathun. And
Yeah.
I was getting deep.
It's
I
good.
loved
It's
it.
good stuff. Yeah.
So with that, we have the Targaryen series that's moving ahead. 10 episode. It's been given. I don't think that they can go back at this point. I don't think they ever gave the White Walker series a full run. So again, they cut their losses with that. We also know, going back to Star Wars, that Kevin Feige, the mastermind behind the MCU, is also working on a Star Wars project. So, there's that rumored that they're finally going to do Knights of the Old Republic. I think he would be the perfect person to do that. At the same time, moving on, how much is too much? Is this a blessing in disguise? This means that we're not getting Game of Thrones for a few years now, because that was a little bit closer to coming out. This Targaryen series isn't in development yet. It's been announced, but it's not happening. Even Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy isn't a sure thing anymore.
I mean, it's like, to me, like there is going to be a critical mass point. It's the moment that that people get tired of it. I don't know where that point is. I don't know when it's going to happen. But at some point, people are going to get tired of seeing, I don't want to go see another Star Wars movie. I don't want to see more Game of Thrones. And they're not going to watch it. They're not going to go see it. And that's where you've hit critical mass. Like, I actually think part of the reason of the high ticket sales for the last Star Wars movie is the fact that people are just like, all right, I want to see how this ends.
Exactly.
I just want to see how this ends. Like, are they gonna pull it off? Is it gonna be great, or are like dudes gonna complain about it on the internet? Like,
Dudes are definitely going to complain about it.
no,
The Star Wars fandom is one of the worst.
Toxic
I
as all
love-
hell.
I love us for some reasons, but we are a toxic fandom. It's just bad.
Whether in
Harassing
talking,
actors.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
and even in Star Wars cosplay, that's a really
Ugh.
toxic atmosphere.
But I mean, honestly, though, the thing is that like you guys can't sit here and say with a straight face like you're totally excited about every single Star Wars thing that's coming out over the next decade.
I am.
I mean, it's like at some point though, it will just be like, all right, and like it's gonna take a lot of effort to be good, this consistently good.
And you're not wrong.
for
You're not
years.
wrong, because when they announced Solo, I wasn't excited. I was not. I saw it. I enjoyed it.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
by
it was
Solo.
it was a decent movie.
Yep. Am I excited about Obi-Wan? Hell yeah. I'm excited about Obi-Wan. I'm like dying for the Mandalorian to come out.
Mandalorian. I'm the most excited for.
Yeah, Mandalorian is.
I'm excited for how Mandalorian might touch on stuff with Rebels. I feel like Sabine might make an appearance in that. She has to. She's alive and she's a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I'm excited about these shows. But Matt, you make a great point, and we have it on our sheet here. When do these things stop being special? And these things should be special. Game of Thrones, everybody anticipated the next season. Star Wars, when it wasn't just Star Wars this, Star Wars this, Star Wars this, everybody was like, oh my God, you got goosebumps. But like every Star Wars trailer that came out for Rise of Skywalker, I didn't get like the hardcore goosebumps that I used to.
I also thought, weren't they supposed to slow down on the Star Wars stuff? Weren't they like
They were. Bob Iger said that they were
Bob
going
Iger
to.
was like, all right, we're going to slow down on the Star Wars stuff. And now it's just like,
Well, it's because Disney wants the money. They're like,
Yeah.
oh man, let's go. But
Go
they can
ahead.
keep going. I mean, the downside is when Disney did buy Star Wars, they did that thing where they kind of cut off all the extended universe stuff, and they're like, we're gonna do these films, but they're gonna have nothing to do with the extended universe. So they have a plethora of so much content they could do if they do tap into that, or just any of the side stories that have been written. I'm sure you probably read a bunch.
If you come to my house, you'll see.
I've seen a Thrawn book on your
on my desk. Yep,
so-
and I have the whole New Jedi Order series, everything that after that. There's a great storyline which they took from for the J.J. Abrams trilogy / Rian Johnson. Where Han and Leia's kid, one of the twins, Jason becomes a Sith Lord. And I'm not gonna. I think I spoiled it on the show before. I'm not gonna spoil it in this episode. It's a great fucking story. It's amazing. It's heart wrenching. Bad shit happens, and I wish that they would tap into some of it.
I think if they stick to maybe TV shows for a bit and not main numbered movies, if
Yes.
they do
Well, main number movies are over.
I know, but when they were first announcing the Star Wars stories, and when they did Han Solo, a Star Wars story,
The
Rogue
Rian
One,
Johnson
those
trilogy.
are the recent films that I've enjoyed the most.
Rogue One is
Rogue
my favorite
One
Star
and
Wars
Han
movie.
Solo, the films, I actually enjoyed them, and I was like, I like if they would just take one character to explore or one concept to explore at a time, and if they want to do any sort of order, depending on the time period, they can do Knights of the Old Republic, a TV show. I'll watch it.
I want them to please go away from the original trilogy time period. Just please.
I think they need to. Yeah.
Just like I would love Knights of the Old Republic. I would love to see the Jedi Order at its height,
Yes.
fighting the Sith Empire and so that would be baller. That would be cool. Just, thinking about all the stuff you could do with that. You could have
Think of the video games.
I still pray that someone goes, even though it's going back to the original characters, we need to do an expanded universe movie series, and we need to do Heir to the Empire. It's one of the greatest Star Wars stories ever, and it's only ever been in book form.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Yeah.
Anything we want to add to this?
Star Wars Kelvin timeline. Let's just redo everything.
Yes. Anything else?
I mean, I don't have too much else to add. Like, as I said, it's at some point we are going to hit critical mass with this because eventually I think as like the more of the stuff they make, the less special it becomes, and the more like people are just going to be like, it's another Star Wars movie, whatever. Yeah. I don't care.
And I don't ever want to feel that way.
No, I don't want to feel that way either. But at the same time, though, is that
never want to give you.
If they take their time to make quality stories and they're more spaced out, then they're good for like the next millennium.
Yeah, like please space it out a little bit. Don't just cram them all into like the next 5 to 6 years and just be like Star Wars. Oh, we're gonna have 2 Star Wars movies in a year. Like, come on, guys. Like, don't do
animated
that.
Clone Wars, Rebels, like all those shows did really well, but because they were doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And people ended up watching it that they didn't expect to. And like, I mean, a lot of people just know the films, and some people are like, wait, there were shows, but like. Those that watched it are like, this is quality. This is what we need.
I still to this day love the hand animated Clone Wars.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I do too.
Like that General Grievous to me is the Grievous that should have been in the movies.
Oh, so cool.
Well, yeah, and then they turn it into a bumbling idiot. But that's a story for another.
His little organs crushed.
Another.
That was an awesome scene.
It was.
Hello there.
I already did it, and I don't have the button available. Damn you, Brittany. That's going to do it for this episode. It was fun. This was good.
We always have fun when we record.
We do have fun. A lot of stuff going on. And we will be back next week with episode 37. It is going to be our Veterans Day special. We're going to go see Midway and review that from, I believe, Roland Emmerich, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm like, the thing is like, I actually tried to do some research on this movie because at first I was like, there's no way this is historically accurate because like the whole thing of like Washington thinks it's going to be that Washington's wrong. And I'm like, no, apparently that literally happened. Is that?
Yeah, well, so we'll see. We're going to go see that. And we're also going to be talking about war and film and pop culture and go over some of our favorite, war movies as well. So you have that to look forward to in episode 37. That's going to do it for episode Oh, sorry. You know what? I made a mistake. This is episode 37.
You just keep going.
Well, you should have told me earlier.
Because I thought you could fix it in post.
No, this isn't even going to get edited out. People are going to have to deal. Episode 38 is next week, ladies and gentlemen. We're reaching 40. That's next week. Have a good night.
You can find Everything is Permitted on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Everything is Permitted is produced by Rob Migliaccio, Nikki Veazey, and Geneva Stein-Shivers. Our executive producers are Michael Cox, Brittany Tomes and the Tomes family, and Julian Brown.